respective right and jurisdiction in the West Philippine Sea. That was published in May of 2017. So, without further ado, my dear brothers and sisters, Justice Antonio Carpio.
We'd like to request everyone to kindly mute themselves as we welcome now Justice Carpio.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction. A pleasant afternoon to everyone. Thank you for inviting me this afternoon to discuss with you our sovereign rights in the West Philippine Sea. I understand that you have watched my video lecture, and so this afternoon I will present a few slides to round up our understanding of the West Philippine Sea issue. So I will now show you some slides. You're now familiar with the 1734 Murillo-Velarde map. And of course, in this map, you will see Scarborough Shoal. In this map, it was named Panacot. And you will also remember that we have Los Baos de Paragua, which are the Spratlys. It appeared in this map. So in this map, these two geologic features were given names. Before that, in earlier maps, these geologic features had no name. But Father Pedro Murillo Velarde did not just dream of this or invented it on his own, because these geologic features appeared in older maps. We have the 1657 Sanson map of the Philippines. Nicolas Sanson was the father of French cartography. He was the king's cartographer, appointed by King Louis XIII. So, they are not part of colonial territories. So even when France was the colonial power in Vietnam in 1933, France did not claim it on behalf of Vietnam, but claimed it on behalf of France itself. So the inhabitants in French overseas territories are French citizens, and they vote in every French elections. And this is very important because Vietnam today cannot take advantage of that French claim in 1933. And so their basis for claiming the Spratlys is really wrong, because France did not claim the Spratlys for Vietnam, but for France itself. And this is the 1688 map of Father Coronelli. Father Coronelli was the Father General of the Franciscan Order. The Franciscans arrived in the Philippines in 1578. And if you remember, Manila was founded in 1571. So shortly after the founding of Manila, the Franciscans arrived, just like the other religious orders. And these religious orders would send periodic reports to the Vatican. What were the names of the new towns established? What were the new islands occupied? And Father Coronelli was there in the Vatican receiving all of these reports from the Franciscan Order in the Philippines. And Father Coronelli made a map of the Philippines, and he drew a line around the Philippine territory in Southeast Asia. And in Palawan, he clearly included the Spratlys as part of the Philippines within the lines. And of course, when Father Pedro Murillo Velarde, a Jesuit priest, made the 1734 map, he had access to all of these prior maps. And so he did not just invent it during his time. This goes back all the way to the 1600s. And what about Scarborough Shoal? In 1792, Alessandro Malaspina, who headed the Spanish scientific expedition, arrived in Manila. Malaspina was head of the Spanish scientific expedition that went around the world to collect specimens of flora and fauna of the Spanish territories and to chart the Spanish
Hintay lang po nating makabalik si Justice Carpio. Baka po problema lang siya sa internet. Hihintayin lang po natin siya babalik. Medyo challenge po tayo ngayon. Okay? Ang tawag po dito sa nangyayari ngayon ay electronic demon. Meron po mga kumukontra sa atin sa araw na ito. Okay, so wag po tayo mawawalan ng loob, makakabalik po kagad si Justice Carpio sa atin. Again, we're very sorry po, Justice. We're again very excited to listen to you.
Okay, so Malaspina went to Scarborough Shoal and he made a death sounding. He dropped a rope, and at the end of the rope was attached a stone or a metal so he can measure the depth. And this is the first hydrographic survey of Scarborough Shoal. There's no earlier hydrographic survey by China. We are in 1792, and can you imagine there was a hydrographic survey of Scarborough Shoal. And in his logbook, Malaspina wrote on May 4, 1792, and he said, on this shoal, Spanish and foreign ships have been lost because earlier in 1748, the British tea clipper ship Scarborough ran aground on Panapot. So we have a good documentation that Scarborough Shoal belongs to the Philippines. And I got that from the Museo Naval de Madrid. I asked the Philippine Embassy in Madrid to make a copy, and they gave me a digital copy. When the Americans, after signing the Treaty of Paris in 1898, the Americans came here, and the Americans immediately came out with a map of the Philippines. This is the first map, official map of Philippine territory made under the American regime, 1899. And you will see here, this was made by the United States Coast and Geodetic Survey, and that is Bajo de Masinloc. This was published in Washington, D.C. And guess who made this? Another Jesuit priest, Father Jose Algue. He was probably making it even before the Americans came and presented it to the Americans. And Father Jose Algue was made, of course, the first director of the Pag-asa, the Weather Bureau. And so clearly, Scarborough Shoal is part of Philippine territory. And in 1938, the Philippines was already run by the Commonwealth government that's manned by Filipinos. And the Filipinos at the time were really far-sighted. They said some country might claim Scarborough Shoal, so let's put up a lighthouse there to assert our sovereignty. But of course, they had to make sure that Scarborough Shoal is part of Philippine territory. So they asked Secretary Colonel Hull, the U.S. State's Secretary of State, and Secretary Hull responded in his memorandum of July 27, 1938. And he said, because of the absence of other claims, the shoal should be regarded as included among the islands ceded to the United States, where the American-Spanish Treaty of November 7, 1900. That's the Treaty of Washington. And so the Secretarial said, yes, the Commonwealth government can put up a lighthouse there if you want. So you can see the government officials at the time running the Commonwealth government were very far-sighted. They wanted to secure Scarborough Shoal by putting up a lighthouse there. Now, after we won in the Hague, that was the July 12, 2016 ruling, the Chinese started to make other false claims. There are three, I will mention three. China said, oh, we own the Spratlys because in the Cairo Declaration of 1943, President Roosevelt, Prime Minister Churchill, and the President Chiang Kai-shek declared that the Spratlys and the Paracels will be returned to China after Japan is defeated in World War II. That's false, and I will show it to you. The other false claim is that the Potsdam Declaration of July 1945, issued by U.S. President Truman, UK Prime Minister Churchill, and Chinese President Chiang Kai-shek awarded the paracels and the Spratlys to China. This is false, and I will show it to you. The third is that the San Francisco Peace Conference of 1951 awarded the paracels and the Spratlys to China. And this is again false. Let's go to the Cairo Conference. The Cairo Conference produced this Cairo Declaration of November 27, 1943. And in the second item, it says, all territories Japan has stolen from the Chinese, including Manchuria and Formosa, shall be restored to the Republic of China. Now, it doesn't say Spratlys or the paracels because the Japanese did not steal the paracels from China or the Spratlys from China. Japan seized the paracels from the French, and Japan seized the Spratlys from no one. No one occupied the Spratlys in 1939 when Japan's put up a submarine base in Ituaba. Although France claimed the Spratlys in 1933, France did not actually occupy the Spratlys. So Japan seized it from no one because no one was occupying it, although France claimed it. But definitely, Japan did not seize it from the Chinese. The two group of islands, Spratlys and the paracels, would fall under number 3. Japan will also be expelled from all other territories which she has taken by violence and greed. Here is the clause where the Spratlys and the paracels will fall. Japan will be expelled. But there is no award of the paracels or the Spratlys to any country, not to China. The Cairo Conference was silent. In the Potsdam Declaration, it states there that the terms of the Cairo Declaration shall be carried out, and the Japanese sovereignty shall be limited to certain islands and such other islands that they will determine. There was no award of the paracels or the Spratlys to China. The Potsdam Declaration merely reiterated the Cairo Declaration. And in the San Francisco Peace Treaty, China even denounced the treaty as illegal. China was not represented because there was an ongoing civil war. The People's Republic of China, under the Communist Party, denounced the treaty as illegal. And what actually happened in the conference is that the USSR filed a formal motion to award the paracels and the Spratlys to China. But this motion was defeated by a vote of 46-3 with 1 abstention. So, in fact, the San Francisco Peace Conference rejected the award of the paracels and the Spratlys to China. It's the other way around. The conference never awarded the Spratlys or the paracels to China. In fact, they rejected the motion to award it. Now, the July 12, 2016 ruling has a dispositive portion. This is the conclusion. And the conclusion of the tribunal is that the tribunal declares that China's claim to historic rights are contrary to the convention and without lawful effect. China cannot claim the waters within the 9-dash line because such a claim is contrary to the convention and without lawful effect. So this is the decision of the tribunal. Now, there is, however, a light at the end of the tunnel because China refused to comply with the ruling, but somehow we are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. On November 27, 2018, China and the Philippines signed a Memorandum of Understanding to cooperate in exploiting the oil and gas in the West Philippine Sea. And the structure of this MOU is that China will come in under the service contract system of the Philippine government. It's very important. Under the service contract of the Philippine government. China signed that. And in August of 2019, China and the Philippines signed the Terms of Reference, or TOR, to implement the MOU. And the the manner of participation by China in this exploitation of oil and gas will be through the service contract again. That structure was not changed. It remained. There was supposed to be the last step, the signing of a commercial agreement between China National Offshore Company, that's a state-owned company of China, CNOOC, and Forum Energy, which the Philippines awarded a service contract 73 or 72 rather, to exploit the gas in Reed Bank, because we all know that the gas is in Reed Bank. So that was supposed to be the final agreement to implement the MOU and TR. However, the pandemic intervened. They were supposed to meet last March 2020 in Manila, but the meeting did not take place because of the pandemic, and we have not rescheduled it. So why is this a light at the end of the tunnel? Because under the Memorandum of Understanding, it says there the China will participate through a service contract of the Philippine government. And in the service contract between the Philippines and Forum Energy, and in all other service contracts, the first clause says, whereas the oil and gas belong to the Philippine state. So it's there in black and white that the sovereign rights belong to the Philippines and that the contract shall be governed by Philippine law. So this will be the participation of CNOOC will be a commercial agreement. So this is a soft landing for China. There is an implied admission by China that the oil and gas belong to the Philippine state. They don't say it expressly. It is through this service contract, but that is enough. For me, that is enough because we have to give China a face-saving exit, because China has been telling, teaching, educating its people since 1949 that they own the South China since 2,000 years ago. They cannot just turn around and say now that what they thought was totally false. So it has to be a soft landing for China. This is a graceful exit for China. China will tell its people, well, we have 40%, because under the service contract, the service contractor will provide all the capital, energy, and technical services in getting the gas. And as payment, the service contractor will get 40% of the net proceeds, and the Philippines will get 60% as owner of the oil and gas. That's the structure. So China will get 40%, which is the same amount that we pay Shell now. Shell is getting the gas in Malampaya, and that's the same amount. So we are not paying CNOOC more than what we're paying the other Western companies. But for China, they can now present the same agreement to Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. In fact, when there was a standoff in Vanguard Bank between Chinese and Vietnamese Coast Guard vessels, because China sent a drilling ship there, a survey ship in Vanguard Bank, which is part of the EEZ of Vietnam. The Chinese told the Vietnamese, just wait until we finish our MOU and TOR negotiations with the Philippines, because we will offer you the same terms. And I talked to the Vietnamese, and they said, we will accept that. If the sovereign rights will be retained by us, we are willing to pay them 40%. That's the going rate anyway, if you anywhere in the world. That's the industry practice. So if we finalize the last step, the commercial agreement, we would have found a peaceful solution to the South China Sea dispute. And this will apply to all the other countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia, with which China has a dispute also, because the 9-dash line encroach on their EEZs also. So there is a light at the tunnel. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we might be in the cusp of a final solution to this most intractable maritime dispute in the world today. So I I end my short presentation. And I'm willing to answer your questions. We can proceed to the question and answer portion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Justice Carpio. We learned a lot from your presentation this afternoon, especially excited also for the light at the end of the tunnel. So we've listened a number of times to the presentation you've made in YouTube and in other presentations, but it's very helpful for us to understand now that indeed there is really a light at the end of the tunnel for the Filipino people. We will be proceeding to the Q&A, and that's the reason why the Honorable Justice decided to, in a way, abbreviate the presentation and take off from the initial YouTube was to give time for people to really ask questions. Our good friend, Attorney Ted, will facilitate the Q&A. But before we proceed with the Q&A, we have a very important announcement. Last October 26 was the last day of Honorable Justice Carpio because that ended his 18th year stint in the High Court upon reaching the mandatory retirement age of 60. No, it's 70. 70. But it is his birthday, October 26. So before we proceed with the Q&A, I would be very, very happy to sing together with the crowd a happy birthday song to you, Justice, all for the love of the country. And if you could join me, everyone, unmute yourselves and sing a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday po.
Thank you so much.
This is a very small way of expressing our love for Justice Carpio, especially being the staunchest defender of the country's maritime rights and entitlement for the West Philippine Sea. And indeed, the Filipinos owe incalculable debt of gratitude to his acts of patriotism. At this point, would like to turn over to Attorney Ted. Please take it away kung ano ang mga questions natin dyan.
Thank you, June. Good afternoon, Justice.
Good afternoon.
Again, po. I have this question from I got this from private chat, and so if those of you who may want to send your questions but don't want to be identified, you can send it to me through private chat on Zoom, or you can raise your hand and I can just acknowledge you. But we have this one question from Brother Omar of RCAM, Council of the Laity Assembly. In the Justice's lecture, he said that the Chinese people have already been indoctrinated that the whole of the South China Sea is theirs. On the Philippine side, is this knowledge that you have been sharing all these years already in the curriculum of our national educational system? Have the CHED or the DepEd reached out to you regarding this? I, for one, never knew there was a Treaty of Washington.
Well, unfortunately, CHED has not reached out to me, and there's no official incorporation of this, what I have stated in this lecture. However, there was a conference of history teachers and professors 2 years ago in Manila, and they invited me, and I gave the same presentation, and I gave them authority to use my materials, and they said they will use my materials in teaching history to their students. So I guess they're doing that now, but they're doing that on their own as part of their teaching materials. Thank you. That your
We have. Thank you, Justice. We have a question regarding the MOU from Dante Chua. With the way we understand the SINUC and the TUC, would the Chinese contractor, well, which is the Chinese government, really honor the agreement?
well, there are two. I have divided this into two phases. If China signed the MOU, the TOR, and if China signs the commercial agreement to Sinuk, then it's already settled, implemented. That is already an implied admission on their part. We can use that already against them because that's very clear that they recognize implicitly our sovereign rights. If they do not proceed, that's okay because we've got the admission. But that's one. We will be ahead. We have those admissions from them. But if they proceed, and I think they will proceed because you probably read in the papers that Dennis Uy, the partner of Sinok in the Philippines, Dennis Uy, bought the 45% share of Chevron in Malampaya. Malampaya is the largest gas field. It's being operated by Shell together with Chevron. And Chevron sold its share for $500 million. And of course, that could only have been co-financed by Sinok. And lately, a week ago, there was an announcement by Shell. They're selling out also. And Dennis Uy said, I will buy also. So that means Dennis Uy will buy and will own 90% of the Malampaya Consortium. And why is this important? Because Malampaya Consortium owns the pipeline from Malampaya to Batangas. It's very expensive to put up this pipeline. If you get the gas in Reed Bank, you have to connect only to Malampaya, from Reed Bank to Malampaya, and then you can deliver the gas to Batangas already through the pipeline. So I think what's happening is Sinuk is already positioning itself to buy the pipeline so that when they operate the Reed Bank, they have already the pipeline. They just connect the new pipeline, a short pipeline from Reed Bank to Malampaya. So they are heavily invested already. So I don't see why they would invest over $1 billion if they finally get Shell also, and just say we don't want to implement it. And that means they will deliver the gas to Batangas, where the gas will be used to feed the gas-fired plants of the Lopez's in Batangas. There are two big, huge gas-fired plants there. So whether they proceed or not, we are already safe because there's already an admission. And if they proceed, and I think they will proceed because they're putting in a lot of money here. And you have to understand that China needs this to convince Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei and Indonesia to join also under the same MOU or why? Because China has realized that because of the arbitral award, no country in ASEAN will give up their sovereign rights. They know that they have an exclusive economic zone proven by the Philippines. The Philippines won. So Vietnam is saying, we also have our sovereign rights. The 9-dash line has no effect, no lawful effect. If we bring the same case against China, we will also win. So China now is facing a great wall in the South China Sea. They will not be able to bully these ASEAN coastal states because the people in ASEAN coastal states know they have these sovereign rights. And no president or no prime minister in these ASEAN coastal states will concede their sovereign rights because they will be overthrown by the people. The people will get mad at any government that concedes sovereign rights to China because we all know now that we have exclusive economic zones because of the ruling. So China has to make the best out of this situation. So China, by offering a 60-40 arrangement, will get 40% of everybody's exclusive economic zone commercially, even if they have to concede the sovereign rights, they still get 40%. That is huge. And if that happens, the ASEAN coastal states will have no grievance against China. China will become a friend of everybody. And this is what they want, to drive away the Americans out of South China Sea. Right now, they want to drive away the Americans, but no ASEAN coastal states would join China because China is grabbing their own exclusive economic zones. Why will they side with China in this battle between US and China when China is grabbing their territory? China has to make peace with the ASEAN coastal states. And I think this is how they will make peace. They will say, we are your big brother, we can give you 60%, 40% is okay with us. But 40% of everybody's EEZ is huge. That's big. So I think that is how they will convince their people that we are the big brother, we want to be friendly, we are generous, so we just get 40%, we give them 60%, and that will be okay. I think that is their game plan because they have hit the wall. With this arbitral ruling, no government in Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, Philippines would ever concede sovereign rights to China. So that's the reason why China is doing this. But of course, there's still one agreement that's lacking, the commercial agreement. China can walk away anytime if it wants to. But right now, the way I see it, it's already invested. But it can still happen, it can walk away. But that's why we have to stand firm. We'll never consider sovereign rights. It will be a soft admission, but that's okay. It's still an admission. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. We have one question from Bishop Broderick Pabilio. Can you talk about the Reed Bank case? What is the problem there? Reed Bank case, po.
Well, the Reed Bank is within our EEZ, and the arbitral tribunal in the award expressly declared that Reed Bank is fully submerged and forms part of the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines. So there's a clear ruling that Reed Bank forms part of our EEZ, and that means all the oil, gas, and mineral resources, all the fish, belongs exclusively to the Philippines. But China says, oh, that is within our 9-dash line. We cannot, that's not yours. So that is the problem, because China does not recognize the ruling. But of course, without our asking for it, the US, Australia, Germany, France, and UK came out with statements recently. China must comply with the arbitral ruling. China must observe international law, the rules-based regime under international law. So we are getting the support of all these big naval powers. So China is feeling the pressure, and China has to get the most out of this situation. And that's why I think China is willing to enter into this MOU and TOR now. Remember, they have signed already. We just need the third agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. There are several questions, Justice, that are related. So I'll try to just put them together. But I think they relate to the acts of China of putting up structures, harassing our fishermen, and at the same time signing the agreement. I think the questions tend towards how should we react to those two acts if it is an implied admission by signing the agreement, yet China continues to put up structures and China continues to harass our fishermen, especially on Scarborough Shoal. So how should we react and respond to those?
There are two disputes in the South China Sea and in the West Philippine Sea, the territorial dispute and the maritime dispute. The maritime dispute has been settled by the UNCLOS ruling as to who owns the oil, fish, gas, and mineral resources beyond the territorial sea of any of those features. That has been finally settled. The territorial dispute remains. That has not been settled by the ruling because UNCLOS has no jurisdiction over territorial disputes. So as to who owns those small islands, rocks above water high tide, and the territorial seas around them, that is still in dispute. And there is no tribunal that has compulsory jurisdiction over that. We can bring China to a tribunal only upon the voluntary agreement of China, and they will not agree. So what I've been talking is the maritime dispute that has been covered, that is covered by the UNCLOS award, and that is what's covered also by the MOU and TOR. The MOU and TOR does not apply to the territorial dispute. It only applies to the maritime dispute that's covered by the arbitral award. So the maritime dispute is finally settled because there's a ruling by the arbitral tribunal. How about the territorial dispute? That will go on and on. But because of sea level rise, it is estimated by the end of the century, at least there will be 1 meter sea level rise in the South China Sea, and that will submerge most of the islands, small rocks there, even the artificial islands. And beyond the century, the sea level rise could be 2 to 3 meters or more. So over time, the spratlys will disappear. They will be submerged underwater, and they will form part of our exclusive economic zone because they are naturally submerged. They are now underwater and forming part of our exclusive economic zone. At the end of the day, because of nature, we will win in the territorial dispute. But you're talking of maybe 50 to 100 years. But it's okay because the territorial dispute is very small. The territorial dispute, those geologic features in the 12 nautical mile territorial sea, comprise less than 3% of the total area of the South China Sea. So it's a small area in terms of dispute. If we settle the maritime dispute through the MOU and TOR, it would have settled largely the dispute in the South China Sea. We can live with the territorial dispute, let nature resolve that. So, and there are no resources there. There are oil and gas in those islands. The oil and gas are in the other areas. So that's how I look at it. We are trying to resolve the maritime dispute because we have a ruling, and China is impliedly admitting already, and let's clinch that. And then on the territorial dispute, there's no hurry because there's no gas there. What is really pressing us is Malampaya is running out of gas in a few years' time. Less than 5 years, it will run out of gas. And that's about the time we need to put online the gas in Reedbank. So that otherwise we will have to be importing liquefied natural gas, and that means higher cost. If we cannot import liquefied natural gas, we will have 12 to 14 hours of brownouts every day in the zone because Malampaya supplies from 35 to 40% of our oil energy requirement in the zone. That is why the Lopez Group has put up LNG terminals in Batangas just in case Reedbank cannot be exploited. We will be importing LNG so that there will be no brownouts, but that means our power rates will go up. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. Again, two related questions po. First, with the Philippine government pronouncements and inaction on this issue, is this not in effect giving up our ownership over the area? And how do you think it will affect our future claim with China's current gray zone strategy?
Well, the ruling is there as long as we don't impliedly or expressly abandon or waive the ruling, it will remain there. The Duterte administration is just putting it aside. So we can wait for the next administration, and the next administration can assert it. As long as we do not waive the ruling expressly or impliedly, that is what we are guarding against. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. Can the president, next question is, can the president on his own Wait, can the president allow on his own the claim of China to the West Philippine Sea? And how can the Filipino people who have the sovereign power protect? Well, I think yes, partly. Justice Carpio has partly answered the question. How can the Filipino people protect the ruling? What should be done on this matter? I think more practical steps, perhaps, Justice, that people are asking about. What
Yeah,
can
well,
people do?
just to put in perspective, there are two levels in law. You have the international law and domestic law. Under domestic law, under our constitution, the president has no power to waive our sovereign rights because that's sovereign. It belongs to the people. It will have to be approved by the people in a plebiscite. However, under international law, under the doctrine of unilateral declarations, the president, as head of state, is empowered to commit the country under international law to waive sovereign rights because under international law, the president represents the country, regardless of what the Constitution says. So the president can actually waive a right, and that will be binding on us, even if under international domestic law constitution he's not so authorized. That's why it's very important that we watch. We are vigilant that the president does not waive expressly or impliedly our sovereign rights. And it happened once, right after his visit from Brunei. He came back, he arrived in Davao, and he said, I am setting aside the arbitral ruling. Setting aside means to abandon, to reverse in law. Under international law, that's a unilateral declaration in favor of China. And if China accepts it, we are bound. And so immediately I got in touch with the DFA people and told them that that's a unilateral declaration. If China announces now acceptance, we're dead. So you have to clarify that immediately. And good thing that the DFA officials immediately clarified that the president did not mean to abandon. He just meant to put it aside and raise it at some other time. We were not abandoning it. And a few hours after the DFA made that clarification, China comes out with an announcement, we are accepting. But it was too late. We were able to clarify. So it just shows that the president can actually waive the sovereign rights by mistake, by negligence, and we have to be very vigilant about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. There's a question. Can you enlighten us about the idea of declaring the Spratlys as a maritime reserve and the new case? I think communication filed by former Ombudsman Morales and former Secretary Del Rosario for damages against China.
Well, declaring a disputed maritime space, when two countries quarrel over a maritime space, one solution is to declare it a marine protected area. And this happened when Israel and Jordan signed a peace treaty. There was a patch of water in the Red Sea that they could not decide who owns it. They just decided to declare it a marine protected area, jointly managed by them, and it's very successful. Now, in the Spratlys, this has been proposed by Professor McManus, marine biologist. He said the Spratlys is where the fish breed. They spawn there, and the eggs and larvae are carried by currents all over the South China Sea. That's why the South China Sea is very productive in terms of fish. The South China Sea has an area of 2.5% of the total ocean surface of the world, but it produces 12% of the annual fish catch of the world. So it's very productive. That is because of the Spratlys. The Spratlys are an extensive collection of atoll reefs, and it is in the atoll reefs that fish spawn, lay their eggs. Now, so maybe 200 million people living around the South China Sea depend on fish from the South China Sea for their protein. And half of these people are Chinese people because China today takes 50% of the annual fish catch in the South China Sea. So if we preserve the Spratlys as a marine protected area, the number one beneficiary will be China, because it's the number one taker of the fish in the South China Sea, about 50% or even more now. So that's the rationale behind declaring the Spratlys as a marine protected area, to postpone the territorial dispute and declare it a marine protected area for the benefit of everybody. And there is a pending bill in Congress to declare our part of the Spratlys, the area that we possess, as a marine protected area. And we should be convincing the people in Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia to do the same. So what will happen there is, if everybody declares, if all the countries declare their possessions in the Spratlys as marine protected area, China will be isolated, and the pressure will be on China to follow. And of course, this will be NGOs that will be clamoring that China should follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. There's another question here. The President surprisingly bringing up and confirming the arbitrary ruling during his speech at the UN General Assembly was a positive turn. Justice, would you have any predictions for a possible code of conduct in the South China Sea with ASEAN and China?
Well, I'm not too optimistic about the code of conduct because, first, China says the paracels will be excluded from the code of conduct, and Vietnam will never sign a code of conduct if that is excluded. They will never sign if Scarborough Shoal is excluded. And there are other issues on the code of conduct, whether it should be legally binding or not. And Secretary Locsin recently said, we will insist that the arbitral ruling be included in the code of conduct. And of course, China will refuse, because that means China will be accepting. So I think what will happen is, if the MOU and TOR and finally the commercial agreement is signed, that will pave the way for the code of conduct, because then there is no really dispute on the resources. So if we finalize the MOU, TOR and the third agreement, and Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, and Vietnam also follow, then it's very easy to sign the code of conduct, because we have set it to be easier. And if we agree on the MOU, TOR and commercial agreement, the pressure to sign the code of conduct will be lessened, because most of the dispute, 97% of the dispute would be settled, because that's 97% of the South China Sea, the maritime dispute. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. I don't see any more questions on chat, unless there is someone from the floor.
Yeah, at this point, would like to ask from the floor, anyone who might have some questions to to the Honorable Justice, and also maybe some comments from our bishops if they wish to express some comments regarding the presentation of the Honorable Justice. While waiting for this, we would like to hear from Justice Carpio the challenge that you would like to pose to each and every one of us, as we also need to do something in our own personal capacities. And is there anything that's concrete enough for us to be able to do, so that we can at least give our contribution in really making this truth well known? Your advice, Justice?
Yes, there is a pending bill in Congress to declare our geologic features that we occupy in the Spratlys as a marine protected area. We can support that. And once that's approved, we can show to the other countries to follow. Even now, we can dialogue with the people in Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia to declare their portions, their areas also marine protected area. So there will be a clamor to preserve the marine environment in the Spratlys because it will benefit everyone. I mean, nobody should be opposing the declaration of the Spratlys as a marine protected area because it's for the benefit of everyone. And that is one move where we can all be united. And we will lessen the tension on the territorial dispute. There's also recently, last December 2019, Malaysia filed an extended continental shelf claim. Earlier, Vietnam and Malaysia filed a joint extended continental shelf claim because coastal states still have an additional 150 nautical miles from the edge of the EEZ. All the mineral resources in these 150 nautical miles will belong to the coastal state, but the fish in the water column belong to mankind. So we still have resources there beyond our EEZ. And we should be filing our extended continental shelf claim. But I understand from our marine biologists that we have already finished the technical work. It's now ready for filing, but President Duterte doesn't want to offend China by filing it. So we should now start lobbying. That Malaysia filed and nothing happened to Malaysia. Vietnam filed, nothing happened to them. Why shouldn't we file? We are just protecting our national needs. So we should be filing our extended continental shelf claim facing the South China Sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Carpio. Thank you, Attorney Ted. This has been a very enlightening afternoon. We know that we still have a lot to learn regarding this particular issue, and that is why we would like to encourage everyone, number one, continue viewing, passing, and sharing that particular YouTube link which we sent to you, the defending the sovereign rights in the West Philippine Sea that's been presented by Justice Carpio, because that is one concrete way by which we can educate our people on the sovereign rights we have as a people. So tuloy po natin yan, and at the same time, this will also be cross-posted in the CBCP FB Live page. I-share din po natin yan so that more of our people can really understand the situation we have. But more than that, I think prayer has a lot to do with this. We need to pray for our country. We need to pray for our president, our people. We also need to pray for China because we know that prayer will move not only mountains, but even the seas. So talagang kailangan po natin ipagdasal yan. And that is why I would like to really just thank the Justice Carpio this afternoon by really praying for you. We know that even with the retirement of Justice Carpio, he will continue his crusade to fight and to defend our country's legitimate claims for the West Philippine Sea. Okay, we know that he will remain strong. Okay, to be that strong defender. And in fact, okay, we need to understand that he has already given so much of his life in this fight, and we are very, very grateful to you. Maraming salamat po, Justice Carpio. If you would allow us, I will be requesting our chairman, Bishop Abilio, to just say a small prayer for you. Okay? Bishop, pwede po ba natin pagdasal si Justice Carpio this afternoon?
Thank you.
Okay. I would invite all of you to please raise up your hands so that we will pray for our beloved Justice Antonio Carpio for his crusade. O God, our loving Father, we thank you for giving us Justice Carpio and awakening us through his expertise and through his sharing about our sovereignty as a Filipino nation. Please always be with him, guide him in all his endeavors, and may he find receptive ears to understand the issues. And also we pray for us, the Filipinos, that we also may be always be vigilant, as he has said, so that we can protect our own sovereignty, not only for our time, but for generations to come. All of this we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Maraming salamat po, Bishop Abilio.
Thank you so much.
Before we end, nandito po kasama natin ang military diocese represented by Father Paul de Guzman. Sorry, Father, natawag ko kayo. No? But Father Paul de Guzman is the head of the Commission on Clergy, Youth, and Vocation in the military diocese. And I think it will really be a big push, okay, as the chaplains are here to be able to share also this truth, especially in our military ordinariate. Yung lahat po ng mga uniform personnel na maintindihan nila, nakasama rin sila dito sa labang pambayan. So kasama sila sa pagtataguyod ng ating pakikibaka para sa natin sa West Philippine Sea. Salamat, Father Paul de Guzman. Bati lang po. At this point, we'd like to formally end our time together. We will continue to pray for you, Justice Carpio. Belated happy birthday, and we are grateful that you spent this time. We will continue to share whatever material you have in the different platforms so that our people can continue to be educated. And to all the members of the Sangguniang Laiko, those who are present right now, we will meet again next week for another exciting conversation, this time making disciples in an online environment. How can we make Christian disciples in an online platform? So yun po ang discussion natin next week. So I hope you can join us again this afternoon. Maraming salamat po sa lahat. At bilang panghuli, first things first, huwag po natin kalimutan yung pang-araw-araw na pagninilay na binibigay ni Bishop Abilio sa YouTube tungkol sa first reading natin. Bantayan po natin yan, isama natin sa ating pang-araw-araw na panalangin sapagkat makakatulong po yan sa paglago natin sa Panginoon. Again, to everyone, maraming salamat po and good afternoon. Thank you po.
Thank you, Justice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice
Thank you.
Carpio.
Thank you, Justice. Thank you, Ted. Thank you.
Salamat, everyone.
Happy birthday,
Welcome.
Justice.
Thank you.
Thank you po. Thank you po.
everyone.
Bye-bye po. Keep safe
Thank
po
you
sa ating
po.
lahat.
Thank you, Justice. Thank you,
Keep safe
Justice.
po sa ating
Salamat
lahat.
po.
Patuloy po tayo
Thank
mag-pray
you.
para sa sa bagyo.
Okay, thank you.
God is telling all of us right now, whoever you are, wherever you are, be still and know that I am God.
So how will you recognize a true Christian? The true Christian is always faithful. The favorite word of the true Christian is thank you. Because of the true Christian, everything is his gift.
When you die to yourself, forget yourself, and give yourself as a gift to another person, that, my friend, is when you taste authentic, permanent joy.
This is Faith Watch TV, today's leading Catholic online TV. We at Faith Watch create all original content ranging from reflections from the Church's bishops and priests, lessons on catechesis, testimonies of your favorite inspirational speakers, talk shows, and news programs. Powered by Areopagus Communications, Faith Watch TV aims to deliver to you the best and the latest inside and around the Catholic Church, neatly packaged for the Filipino Catholic. FaithWatch TV, today's leading online TV, your Catholic channel.